Hello friends, if you're new, welcome to my channel. If you're coming back, welcome back. I really do appreciate you. Today's topic is going to be Jehovah's Witnesses, Major Doctrines 3. This is the last of the Major Doctrines mini-series. Not much else I need to say. Let's get on with the video. Jehovah's Witnesses are Old Earth creationists, or OECs. They see no reason not to accept the scientific fact that the universe is billions of years old. However, they assume that the 6 creative days, or periods, were each 7,000 years long. Old Earth creationists actually take their view from the fact that Yom, or the Jewish word for day, can also mean an unspecified period of time. They calculate the length of these 7,000-year creative periods from the millennium, which they hold to be literally 1,000 years. The psalmist wrote that a day with the Lord is 1,000 years. So the Watchtower concluded that the millennium is the Sabbath day for mankind. If the millennium is the Sabbath, the preceding 6 periods were 1,000 years, but somehow Watchtower exegetes this to make it so that each day was 7,000 years. If anybody understands this, please explain it to me, because I can't make head nor hair of it. Much of their Bible chronology, with some modifications, is based on that used by C.T. Russell, who in turn adopted it from Nelson Barber and John Penton. Although too detailed to go into at length, I will give the most important dates. Keep in mind, this is JW chronology. Thus, the historically inaccurate 607-606 BCE date for the fall of Jerusalem is included in the chronology. They also have other dates that, to be honest, I have no idea how they came up with. They date the beginning of Israel at 1813 BCE and the fall of Jerusalem at 607-606 BCE. In 454 BCE, the order was given to rebuild Jerusalem's walls, and also started the 2300 days of Daniel 8:14 and the 70 weeks of Daniel 9:24. In 29 CE, Jesus was baptized and anointed. According to their timeline, Jesus died in 33 CE, and 36 CE marked the end of the 70 weeks in Daniel 9:24, plus Christianity being preached to the Gentiles. Jerusalem was indeed destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. They also believe that 539 CE marked the beginning of papal dominance of Christianity. It also marked both the start of the 1260 days of Daniel 12:7, the 1290 days of Daniel 12:11, and the 1335 days of Daniel 12:13. In 1799, the 1260 days ended when Napoleon debased the papacy. The Millerite, or Second Adventist movement, ended the 1290 days in 1828. The year 1846 saw the end of the 2300 days and the cleansing of the sanctuary by removing of false doctrine. 1873 saw the end of 6,000 years of human existence, and 1874 ushered in the end of the 1,335 days. Christ's parousia, or invisible presence, and the beginning of the harvest. The year 1878 was supposed to be the time of the coming of Christ in great power. This was also supposed to be the time of the resurrection of the saints. Supposedly, 1881 ended the call to the 144,000, or little flock, and the world empire of false religion should have been destroyed at this time. Finally, according to this timeline, 1914 marked the end of the Gentile times that would lead to the Battle of Armageddon, the cleansing of the earth of the wicked, and the restoration of natural Jews to Palestine. Obviously, none of this ever happened, so Russell had to revise this timeline. After Russell's death, the Society published the Finished Mystery, which added new dates that became important to Russell's followers. Rutherford predicted that 1918 would see worldwide anarchy, along with the beginning of the destruction of Babylon, the world empire of false religion, and the exaltation of the 144,000 to heaven. In 1920, God would send fire from heaven to destroy Christendom. Rutherford predicted that the Great Company, who at that time was still seen as a secondary heavenly class, would receive their reward in 1921, which would end the heavenly resurrection. The worldwide anarchy would end in 1925 with the restitution of Israel. He also prophesied that 1931 would see the full establishment of God's kingdom on earth, that 1980 would possibly be the regathering of fleshly Israel through earthly resurrection. By 2875, restitution of earth would be complete, and God would restore dominion of earth to man in 2914. After the Finished Mystery was published, Rutherford became almost fanatical about 1925, insisting that the ancient worthies would return and all things would be restored. When 1926 rolled around, the Society published a revised edition of the Finished Mystery, taking out a number of date-centered prophecies that had failed. Not long after this, the book was discarded by the Society, though many of the ideas have persisted. In the 20s and 30s, the Society had to either abandon or revise Russell's chronology, as well as that in the Finished Mystery. In the end, they came to believe that most of the aforementioned dates had no significance, and most JWs today don't even know about them. However, Watchtower has retained certain dates taught by Russell. For example, they decided to keep his interpretation of the 70 weeks of Daniel, albeit with minor adjustments. They also still use the year for a day substitution in two of the Danielic prophecies. Even so, current Watchtower chronology is very different than that accepted before 1935. Probably the two most important dates for witnesses today are 607 BCE and 1914 CE, even though we know without a doubt that Jerusalem fell in 587. 607 is the only date that gets witnesses to 1914. Without 1914, their chronology falls flat. Never mind the fact that Armageddon did not come in 1914, but something major did happen. World War I started. According to this updated chronology, 1914 marked the end of the times of the Gentiles and the beginning of the times of the end. In 1918, Christ came to his temple for judgment. 1919 ushered in the fall of Babylon the Great, and 1975 was the end of 6,000 years of mankind's existence. Prophetic day periods like those in Daniel are now interpreted as literal days and are said to have happened during World War I and up to 1925. Despite being wrong on numerous occasions, the Society has not been dissuaded from date setting. The doctrine of the resurrection has probably been the most subject to change. Russell taught that the 144,000 would be part of the first resurrection as taught now. However, he taught that the resurrection started in 1878, not in 1918, which Watchtower has taught since Rutherford. Russell called the great crowd the great company, and believed that they would also rise spiritually, though not in the first resurrection. The rest of mankind would have an earthly resurrection, with the ancient worthies, such as Abraham and Isaac, being the first. In 1916, Russell taught that these ancients would rise only after all the saints obtained the heavenly reward. But in the 1920s, Rutherford started teaching that these men might appear before the quote-unquote church class died. In 1930, he still taught that all, including Adam, would rise from the dead. For a number of years, Rutherford's teachings remained unchanged. Watchtower did change a major Rutherford doctrine in 1950. However, Frederick Franz decided to revert to Russell's teaching that the princes would not be resurrected until after Armageddon, the princes being people like David and Abraham. Far more important changes were in store for the doctrine in the mid-60s. In the March 1st, 1965 Watchtower, they apparently got new light that most who had died before Armageddon would be resurrected. Many people know about the so-called blood doctrine, that the Watchtower says a Jehovah's Witness should die rather than accept a blood transfusion. I do have a mini-series on this topic, but I do want to touch on it here. Where do they get this idea from? The Levitical law imposes a dietary restriction on Israel. Eat no manner of blood. Leviticus 7:26. This injunction is repeated in Acts 15:19-20 and 28-29. In the July 1st, 1951 Watchtower, the Society stated that the prohibition applied to human as well as animal blood. They also stated that accepting a transfusion was the same thing as eating blood, which is definitely not true, but I'm not going to get into that here. The same arguments are still used, but even stricter rules are in place. For example, Watchtower forbids autotransfusion, in which a person's own blood is stored and then reintroduced to the body at a later date. In the 1959 Watchtower, page 640, the Society states that this would be a mishandling of blood according to the scriptures. This prohibition was extended to products made from animal blood in the early 1960s. Watchtower went so far as to forbid farmers to purchase fertilizers that contained blood, and pet owners were told not to allow transfusions for their beloved animals. Jehovah's Witnesses see the preaching work as their reason for being. This is an essential duty and the means by which JWs are saved. While the governing body pay lip service to salvation by faith, especially for the remnant, its true message is that salvation is by the preaching work. They believe that the establishment of God's kingdom invisibly in heaven forced this system into the last days in 1914. Since then, a witness has been given, drawing as many as they can before Armageddon, or the end of this system of things, as they call it. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button. And if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, Discord, email, and PayPal links are in the description, along with the source that I used for this episode. If you wish to get in contact with me, Twitter is the best way, followed by email. Also, if you wish to support this channel, you may do so on my PayPal link. Please leave comments in the comment section. Not only do I love hearing from you, but it also triggers the YouTube algorithm. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.